Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sporting Journey. Hope everybody's doing well. Just wanted to do a quick video, really, regarding West Ham. Now, before we go on, right, I'm a Leeds United fan, so I know what relegation means. I know how it feels, and I know what it means to be in turmoil with not knowing which way the club's going, which direction the club's going, who's going to take over as manager, what players you're going to have, and all that sort of thing. So I'm not coming on it, and I always said, I will never ever laugh at a club who gets relegated because I know what it feels like. So, I wanted to get that out of the way before we started talking about West Ham. So getting back to West Ham, right? I've titled this video "West Ham in Turmoil." Now, I think the problem what West Ham have got, right, one of the many problems you've got is obviously David Sullivan, right? Now, he come into football management and stuff and ownership at Birmingham, I believe, in it were the early 90s. So that's like 30 or 35 years ago, right? And David Sullivan, but what I remember of him up to now is I believe he's only ever had one proper sporting director, and that were Tim Stainton, but that didn't last very long at West Ham. So in all the times he's been at West Ham, he's been the man who's made his decisions. He's been the man who thinks he can, he's run the ship. He's run the ship if you like. Um, but the problem is, time number one, time moves on. Football's not the same in this day and age to what it was back in '90s. Now it's all data driven and it's all data and it's all stats and everything. And I don't think David Sullivan's got a clue, knows how to hold a computer mouse. Never mind look at some data. And also, he's 80-year-old now, is David Sullivan. It's surely a God. I've always believed if you drive a car after a certain age, you should have to go for a retest. Now, I believe that David Sullivan should have to go for a fit and ownership test to see if he's fit enough to run a football club. That's number one. But number two, maybe it is time for him to step down now and retire and spend time with his missus. Do you know what I mean? I've heard all stuff about him and stuff like that, and how he made his money and stuff like that. That doesn't concern me. That doesn't interest me. People make money how they want to make money. But what does concern me is they had a meeting yesterday with um, Nuno Spirito Santos, and the board apparently were undecisive. Some people wanted him to go, some people wanted him to stay. I think what the problem is I think the board they want him to go, but they don't want to pay him out the compensate all that compensation money, and they're trying to negotiate a bit, some sort of where they don't have to pay as much out for him, because if he stays at West Ham, he will be the highest paid manager in Championship, right? Sorry about that. He will be the highest paid manager in Championship. And what and football managers are mercenaries out there. Let's be honest. It's the only job in the world where if you get sacked, you get paid you get paid handsomely. And he's an extraordinary mercenary. He's Nuno Espirito Santos. He's not as nice as he comes across. Trust me, he's not. I've been saying that for all season, and I think the problem is you make a deal with devil, and it's hard to get rid of devil, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? And that's what people standing when they brought him in. He knew how desperate West Ham was for a manager. He knew how desperate they were for a manager, and now now it's it's um trying to get rid of him. I think it's going to be extremely difficult unless the club pay him out what's in his contract, and it's that's the first problem West Ham have got. The second problem West Ham have got is I don't think they know what players are going to be going and what players are going to be stopping, and they don't even know what players are going to be bringing in. And don't forget, the Championship starts earlier than what the Premier League does. Now, Nuno Espirito Santos were brought in after the fifth game, not with 5 games to go, after the fifth game. He's had plenty of time to keep West Ham United in the Premier League. And this is where I think it went wrong for you. Around this time here, let me share screen. This is where I think it went wrong for West Ham United. But here, he played Suchek and Scarles in a two in midfield, right, against Brentford on Monday, the 20th of October. Right, so and it clearly didn't work. I remember watching West Ham fan channels, and everyone in chat, every West Ham fan channel said it didn't work. And when it come to Friday 24th, I remember watching some of the previews, and it says he won't do the same thing again. He won't go with Scales and Suchek in midfield. He just won't do it. But no one behold, 4 days later against Leeds United, he did exactly the same thing. And I think that's where it went wrong. I think that from that moment, that's when Nuno Espirito Santos lost a bit of self-belief, and he started tinkering with team, and he just didn't have a settled team at all. And at first I thought, is he sending a message to the board to say, look, I need some players in January? But then I looked at the date and I thought October to January, there's a lot of games to play in that time. It's not the right time to start sending messages to board saying that my players aren't good enough. I just think he tinkered with it too much after that point. And the game, the other game, what were red flags for Nuno Espirito Santos was that the quarter final of the FA Cup against Leeds at your ground, London Stadium. He got all the way to quarter final knowing that the next game were at Wembley, and he played a weakened side. Yes, he did well to come back into it, to take it to its 10 penalties, but I think that were a big mistake. If he'd have set out his first team, who knows which way that game could have gone. Who knows? Maybe he would have won it against Leeds. Maybe he wouldn't have. But he didn't give the West Ham fans that opportunity to see that. And that's another red flag for him. And, he comes across as a nice man in interviews and stuff, but I don't think he is. I think he's sly. I think he's a mercenary. I think I've read stories recently about him, not being nice to fans and stuff like that. And the first thing West Ham needed to do were the Sunday when them fixtures were when the fixtures were played in your new year, they should have done a proper statement, not what they put out, not a statement like they did. They should have waited till Monday morning. Well, Sunday, what they should have done was thanked all the fans and says, look, we've made mistakes. We know we've made mistakes. We're going to put it right. And then on Monday morning, it should have been right. We sacked Nuno Espirito Santos. We know what players are going to leave. We know what players are coming in. Please rest assured, West Ham fans, we know what we're doing. We have brought in X, Y, and Z. We have brought in better scouting, better recruitment. We brought in a proper sporting director. David Sullivan's taking a backward step. If you don't want to sell the club, I'm taking a backward step and I'm letting them run it. I'm just going to be the chairman, and I'm going to let other people who know football run this club properly. That's what he should have done, but he didn't. He hasn't. And this is why the West Ham fan base is so in turmoil, because they don't know whether they're coming or going. They don't know who's going to be the manager. They don't know what players you're losing, what players you're keeping. And it's a mess. It's a really big mess. And if West Ham was to get bounce back up after the first time of asking, all these things needed to be in place before now, really, because they should have an idea of what players are leaving. They should have an idea of how much money they've got to spend. They should have an idea of what's needed regarding personnel, and then get them in, and then get the players in, the manager in, then get the players in who the manager and the sporting director wants, so they're in hand with the direction of which way the club should be going. Well, that's what I think. That's what I think. Anyway, West Ham, and like I said, it's been a Leeds fan, been in his position before. When we got relegated, been out of Premier League for so long. I'll never ever laugh at a team who gets relegated from Premier League, because it's not a nice feeling, and we've been there ourselves. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for watching this edition of Sporting Journey. Until next time, guys, have a great day. Look after yourselves, and we'll see you all soon. Bye bye.